know you've probably had a really long day of Zoom already, so thank you for joining us and spending a little bit more screen time with us. We don't have a lot of information on our slides, just the need to know things. So hopefully you can let your eyes relax during the session, just kind of soak in the information with your ears. Welcome again, folks. Hello, my name is Brittany Sherrod. I'm one of the Senior Assistant Directors of Admissions, as well as the Coordinator of Multicultural Recruitment here at Oberlin. And I'm so excited to welcome you to the Tuesday Talk, the college application process for first generation and underrepresented students. During this session, we're going to share a lot of really great information with you. And we have several speakers that are excited to welcome you into this bit of the Oberlin community. I'm going to turn it over to Tom, but before I do, since we are in a Zoom webinar, we want to interact with you as much as possible. So please send any of your questions in the Q&A. So go ahead and open up that Q&A now. If you already have come prepared with questions, you can add them. We have a couple counselors that are watching that. They will chat you some answers if they can, but otherwise we'll be answering questions a little bit after we share some information with you. We also may ask you questions. So even open up the Q&A if you don't have questions now. We want you to respond to us so we can make this as interactive as possible. Tom?
Great, thank you so much, Brittany. Again, welcome everyone. Again, my name is Tom Abeta. I'm the Director of Admissions here at Oberlin, and gosh, this is the start of year 20 for me. And so I feel really privileged to be able to speak to you tonight. And again, welcome to students, maybe parents, other family members. We may even have some guidance counselors or members of CBOs or organizations that help underrepresented students. And so we just want to welcome you. And again, thank you for joining us and taking a little bit of your evening to spend time with us tonight. What I wanted to do was just talk a little bit more about what we're gonna, how we're addressing and what the format of tonight's talk will be. And again, just this idea of the college application and search process and what does that really mean for first generation and underrepresented students. And first of all, I just wanted to, so we can lay the groundwork, what does it mean to be first generation, and what is it, even when we say underrepresented students, what does that really mean? And so for us, within the college application process, when we say first generation, that's really if you're the first in your family to attend college, to attend an institution of higher learning. And so with that, what we're doing is that we're looking to see if your parents, if they've gone to college, if they've earned a 4-year bachelor's degree, but also if your parents did eventually earn that, but they earned it even later in life. A lot of colleges look at that too, that depending if it was within, while you were, maybe started high school or your parents were in college and trying to do that. And so that is a possible definition as well in terms of to expand that, just to make sure that we're really looking at students that did not have the advantage of having a parent that was college educated and maybe didn't know as much about the process. When we talk about underrepresented students, what does that mean too? And again, we are representatives of a selective institution, and so selective admissions means that what we're trying to do is that out of a really great applicant pool of well-qualified students, what we try to do is build a community, right? Because we're community builders, and that's what admissions officers do, is that we're reading through applications, we're sifting through, we're looking at students, and then we're asking ourselves, gosh, is this the person that we would want to join our community? And so when we think about underrepresented, it could be from students from certain backgrounds that just aren't represented well on our campus, or even kind of traditionally underrepresented. And so if we look at that in terms of race and ethnic backgrounds, for us, that's, if you're African American, if you are American Indian or Native American, if you are Latino or Latinx, or if you're Asian American, or if you are also from a background that is Pacific Islander or Native Alaskan, all of those are really considered underrepresented when we start to look at selective private colleges. And that's really what we're looking for, is that when we build a community, we want to build a community that is representative of the diverse nation that we're from, and really reflects the world that we live in today. And so we work really hard to really try to expand the applicant pool to kind of see what are the choices that we have as we're reading through applications, and then really ultimately who we offer admission to. And then obviously we work really hard to try to get students to choose us. Because right now, I know that if you're a senior and you're going through the admissions process, it could seem rather scary, right? In the sense that, what am I doing? I'm trying to write all this stuff about me. And then I know some strangers on the other end are going to be reading my application and they're going to be making a decision. And I know it can seem weighty, but I also want to let you know that we're real people on the other end too. And I know for myself, I'm first generation to college. My dad never completed high school. He retired as a janitor. My mom, never went to college either. I was come from a family of 7 kids. And so all of us were kind of figuring out and trying to maneuver the process. And so today we're going to try to give you some insight into what does it mean to be first generation or underrepresented in the college search process, and how could we help you throughout that. I do want to take a moment though, because we are all staff of Oberlin College. And so I just want to talk to you a little bit about Oberlin College in terms of the moment and who we are with Oberlin. Now, for us, we first of all, we're located in the state of Ohio, just so that you know that we are in Northeast Ohio. And so the one large city that we're next to is Cleveland. And so if you're not familiar with with the Midwest, we are just about 35 miles southwest of Cleveland, and we're about 10 miles south of Lake Erie. And so if you have never seen the Great Lakes, if you haven't seen Lake Erie, again, we say that as yes, it's a lake, but you cannot see Canada if you're on the shore looking across. And so it really is like a sea or an ocean. It has waves, we have beaches. And so so we're nestled in kind of that northeastern corner of Ohio. And so you would fly into the Cleveland airport. We're about a 25-minute drive. We're located in the town of Oberlin. And so the town itself has about 9,000 permanent residents. And then we get about 3,000 students, a little under 3,000 students that ultimately attend Oberlin. And so now I know we're a small college in a small town in Ohio, but we're not one of those kind of regional schools where, some small colleges might get 70 to 80% of the students from that surrounding area or states that are adjacent. But at Oberlin, we have about 6% of our students that enroll in Ohio. So again, 94% of our students are coming from out of state. They represent all 50 states, nearly 40 different foreign countries. And so how it makes a difference, right? If you're in that politics class, especially during this presidential election year, and you're discussing issues, right? The fact that you're going to be surrounded by students that come from large metropolitan cities like New York and Boston and Los Angeles and Houston, Chicago, but also, small rural towns, people coming from different religious upbringings, different cultural experiences, right? That'll make your discussion that much more enriching. And so we're a place that is academically rigorous, but the unique combination of Oberlin is one that we are a full liberal arts college, which has about 2,300 of our students. And then we have our Conservatory of Music, which has about another 600 students. And then a crossover of about 200 that enroll in our double degree program. And so it's a place where if you're excited about academics and you want to dive deeper and kind of get really in there, because it's an academically intensive environment, but not one that's super competitive amongst the students. In fact, it's almost taboo to ask what grade you're getting in a class. Average class sizes are about 19. And it's a place where even for us this year, in terms of where people come from, 30% of our students identified as being a student of color into our enrolling class. Overall, as an institution, it's about 26% of our population, and then it's about 12% of our population are international students. But it ties into our history, right? We were founded way back in 1833. In 1835, we were the first school to admit African Americans, so the first school to put a policy in place to admit students regardless of race. And then in 1837, we were the first school to admit women, so we were the first co-ed institution. So it goes way back into the history of who we are as Oberlin. But again, that idea of our commitment to diversity and really standing for what's right in terms of social justice issues, it's a pillar of who we are today. And so just to give you, again, a small snapshot of who we are as a community, and I definitely encourage that if you want to be more a part of this process, and hopefully after this, that we'll see your applications. So what effect will it be being kind of first generation or student of color to have upon your application overall? what it is like I said, that as a selective institution, we work really, really hard to build a community that is diverse, that has students coming from all different backgrounds. And in fact, we're looking for more and more students in terms of, to enter into the applicant pool that are coming from different backgrounds, so that the choices that we ultimately make will be a diverse community from students from all different backgrounds that will just add to the discussion here on campus. And so, so that's a little bit about us. That's kind of the Oberlin, brief overview. And again, if you want more information, if you hadn't already, I did an online information session. You can definitely go to our website and you can check out. There's virtual tours. There's information sessions online and plenty of virtual, as well as, even if you're in the area, in-person opportunities to still come visit us and see a little bit about the campus.
Some of the things that Tom mentioned, I really like, particularly for this presentation. I too am a first generation college student. I graduated from Oberlin in 2011. My family was very supportive during my college application process, but they didn't understand the ins and outs and what colleges were really looking for. So there are a lot of resources that I sort of had to find on my own or stumble upon. I relied on different communities and networks for support. And that is what we hope to provide you with during this session. We are now a part of your network. So if you are not a member of a college support community or community based organization that helps you apply to college, well, now you have us. We're going to be sharing our email addresses with you. We're going to be talking to you about what we're looking for in the application, what we're looking for from your essay and extracurriculars. So Tom and I are going to tell you all the things that we did not know as first generation college students through this application process. And then the second part of this session will share with you the firsthand experience of two Oberlin students, one who is a current admissions counselor and another that it's still a current student on our campus. So you have even more perspective of the resources that they use from the Oberlin view, but also just in general to apply to their colleges. Starting with the scholarly part of the application process, there's a lot of information that you're going to submit to us that includes your test scores, although we are test optional for the next 3 cycles, your transcript, and a school profile will be sent to us. Now, some of these things may sound familiar, some of them may not. Right away, transcripts and test scores are the quantitative side of the application process that can sometimes come with a lot of pressure. You may not be sure how your information is going to be perceived, what we're looking for with test scores. You may know that colleges all have a profile. You can easily Google Oberlin College class of 2019 and see the average GPA, the average test scores, and you can do this for any institution. But we also have that for you. So I'm going to ask you a question, and this will be the test to make sure you all have your Q&A feature open. Did you know, or have you ever seen your high school's profile? So open up the Q&A and let me know yes or no. Have you seen, or do you know anything about your school's profile? Yes, you're familiar with the profile. No, you are not. I'll wait a moment. All right, we've got some in here. We've got no, I think so. No, sad face. I also had that sad face because I didn't realize what a school profile was until I was an admission counselor. So years after I had applied to college, finished, then I was on this side of the desk and suddenly, I saw this really amazing document of context. So as we're reading your applications, we're not just comparing one student from a school that has a lot of IB courses or classroom sizes that are 10 to 12 people with the student that's at a school with 30 kids in a class that have no IB or AP classes. What we're using to be able to look at your transcript to see if you are engaged in a rigorous and a challenging curriculum is your school profile. Wow, lots of responses coming in. Thank you all. So generally speaking though, no, you all are not familiar with your school profile. The information that's shared on this document is a list of the classes that are offered at your school. So we'll know right away what type of rigor that has been made available to you. If your school partners with a local college, for example, we'll know how often students are usually taking those classes. We see the average test scores from the previous class. So not just looking at the test scores that are average for students that we usually admit, but what's competitive or what's a strong score coming from your community. We also get to see information on what colleges students from your school have been admitted to or enrolled in the past. So we get to know a lot about your school from your school profile. Additionally, at smaller private schools like Oberlin, we have counselors that stick to the same travel region as much as possible. So I have been recruiting with Oberlin for just over 7 years in Georgia and North Carolina and South Carolina the entire time. Some of my other territories have changed, but I have developed relationships with the counselors there. So if I see something on a transcript and I don't quite understand what it means or how to interpret the title of an English class, I reach out to that counselor. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that's connected to your transcript that you're not aware of. So don't worry or panic about whether or not your transcript is going to be competitive against somebody else's. Just know that we are going to have the exact context of where you're coming from.
Whitney, I've got a question.
Yeah.
Where can a student find the school profile, and is it something that they should seek out?
Great question. It's totally up to you whether or not you seek out your school's profile. I like to bring it up because it's helpful to know that colleges have context for the information that they're going to be reviewing for your application. If you would like to have a copy of it or view it, 1, check your school's website, and 2, if it's not there, ask your school counselor. They have access to it. Great questions, folks. Tom,
That's right.
Can you tell us
That's right.
a little bit about test scores and other ways we view transcripts?
That's right. So test scores, and so I know that Brittany had shared that this year that we're going test optional. In fact, for the next 3 years. And so when we say test optional, we really mean test optional. And so what does that mean? So when you ultimately end up applying this year, it'll be at the beginning side. You'll see if test scores don't reflect, if you don't believe that they reflect your ability, then you can choose to be test optional. And so what we'll do is the way that we evaluate an academic, kind of your academic potential and your progress and your performance is that we are spending a lot of time on your transcript, right? So we're looking typically, Oberlin as well as many other selective institutions, tend to look at the 5 core main academic areas, right? So it's English, math, lab sciences, history, and like social studies, and then foreign language, right? So those are typically the 5 kind of main areas that we're looking at. We'll spend time looking at maybe are there trends, maybe if a student maybe didn't start out as well during their first year, but maybe they increased during their sophomore year or junior year. So we're looking at trends, or maybe there's a particular, subject matter that is maybe someone struggled a little bit more with. We'll look at all those things. And so we end up becoming experts at how we read a transcript. And so we're looking at that in conjunction with your standardized test scores, right, to kind of get a sense and a feel. But like Brittany has explained, we're doing it in the context of the school that you're attending, right? We're not going to hold it against a student if, gosh, they only took 1 AP, but yet if their school only offered 2 APs, right, as opposed to maybe a school that offers, 15 or 20 or 30 APs. And so, that idea of context really does mean a lot. And what we're really looking at is we're looking at the rigor of your coursework, right? And so were you in advanced courses or honors classes or AP classes, or does your school offer IB? Are you a full diploma candidate? Right? So we're taking the time to look at that. And that's really, like I said, as an admissions counselors, what we're doing is that we're spending time looking at the transcript and trying to figure that out to make sure that, will this student be successful if they enroll in our community, right? Or can they handle the rigor of Oberlin, and we want to see them succeed. And so that's part of it. And then for test scores, we are test optional, but what that means is that we are test optional for the SAT and the ACT. If there are, students that are applying that are international students, that English wasn't their primary language, then, or if they're not in a school that English is the main language at the school, then we'd still do require some sort of language proficiency exam. So either the TOEFL, and then we've also added Duolingo this year. And so that's another examination that you can go on and it will test you, and it's just a lot more accessible. I do want to say the whole thing about testing, even particularly over this last testing cycle, especially for you seniors, if you were unable to take an exam during the second part of your junior year because of all the things happening with COVID, and then later, even now this fall, there could be situations in which it's just really difficult, or maybe it wasn't the best testing opportunity for you because of the stress of everything going on. That's really why, one of the reasons why 75% of colleges right now are test optional. So we want to make sure that it's not disadvantaging you, and we want to make sure that your scores are reflective of your own ability.
So I think a question that a lot of students will have is, how do I know if I should submit my test scores, or is it good for me? Is it not good for me? Tom, what advice have you been sharing with folks? And then I'll share the advice I usually share with folks.
Yeah, and so in terms of whether or not to submit your test scores, I think it all depends. It's in context, right? And so I would, first of all, say you should talk with your guidance counselor, and because it may be different for different institutions, but part of it is that you want to see, well, what are the average, test scores of the institution that I'm applying to? Am I far outside the range? But also, part of it was what we're also looking at is in context of the school. And so a lot of times school profiles will give you a range of, well, here's the average testing of a student at our school. And so if your test is far above that, then, that could also tell us a lot, right? And so I don't want you to be stressed out about it. I think that you can always end up applying test optional. And then if you take a test afterward, you can still always submit that later for consideration, as long as it's before we've reviewed your application. And it could even be a little bit after the deadline, right? And so that could be an option. It's harder though, once you submit a test score, you can't then change your mind, right? And so you can't just say, now, I'm not test optional anymore, so don't consider, even though I already sent your score to you. It's hard to unsee an examination score. So you just want to make sure that you're in consultation with your guidance counselor and someone that can kind of help you kind of looking at the schools that you're applying to. Awesome.
That was similar to what I usually tell folks. One part is, if you have access to your school profile and you can compare what your scores are to that, if it's above or high in that range, you should definitely consider submitting them, because it shows that you're doing very well within your context. But also, if you are proud of your scores, you worked hard, you study hard, you earned something that really shows your academic capability and your prowess, then send them to us. If you're not as proud of your scores and you don't think they show your ability, then you have the option not to send them. You are not going to sort of be missing a piece of application if we don't see your scores. We are building up your application and the story that you're telling away from it all. So just know that it is completely up to you, and you do have choice of whether or not you're sending them. The main takeaway for this section that we have for you all is that your academic ability is more than just a number, and we hope that you're able to get a better sense of that now. The next things we wanted to talk about was the community member aspect to your application. So as Tom said, through our application review, we are looking for community members. So scholars, yes, but also people that want to join our clubs, that are going to be playing in different teams, that want to perform on stage. We have amazing different orchestras here. So we need students that are going to be engaged. So the essay, extracurricular list, and information that we get from your letters of recommendation provide us with a really great picture of who you are as a community member, how you've interacted in the spaces where you've already have a passion or a level of comfort and familiarity, and we are getting part of that from other people and other parts of that from you. I do have another question for you all, so get back to your computers or your phones, open up that Q&A section, because the next question is, do you feel pressure to have your essay or your extracurricular list fit what you think admission counselors expect? So do you feel pressure for your extracurricular list or essay to fit admissions expectations? Yes or no? I'll give you a moment to answer.
I know there are a couple that just answered right away.
They said yes, they jumped in right away. Again, we're asking these questions as first-gen adults, thinking back on our college application process. We felt pressure. We felt this expectation that was there. I've spoken to prospective students, and that pressure still exists. There's kind of this idea of the perfect college essay, this idea of being a young person, a young adult, a teenager, but also having this unique and special experience that no one else has, that you're going to write about in the best way in what, 500 words or less? That is a lot of pressure. We have a mix there of responses. Thank you all for answering. I think it's important to know that if you have the sense that you need to write about something that's a difficulty or a challenge that you've experienced in your life, you do not need to relive any trauma in your essay. You do not have to write about a limitation or a deficiency. We want to hear about your triumphs, the things that you're excited about, your passions. If you choose an essay topic that does share something that's happened to you in your life that is an adversity, be sure to focus more on the healing than the details of the things that were challenging for you. We want to know how you're going to engage in our community. We want to get glimpses of the things that you're really excited about. I had all of our presenters here kind of just shout out the most popular themes and essay topics that they've heard of. So some of these things, if we've mentioned them, do not panic or worry, but common essay topics have been, let's see, the big game, writing about camp, this sense of I must go to college because I'm a first gen US student and I'm a role model for someone else in my community, or someone else in my community or family member is a role model to me. One of the challenges of these essay topics is that I learn as an admissions counselor more about the competitor during the big game. I learn more about your family's expectations of you, or I learn more about why your mom is amazing. But I want to admit you, not your competitors, you, not your mom, you, not because of expectations. Make sure that no matter what story you're telling us, what piece of your life experience you're sharing, that your voice comes through, that we remember a few things about you as an individual, and that's how we're going to see how you'll fit into our community. The extracurricular list, I want to touch on that just a little bit. Did you have something to say about the essay, Tom?
Oh no, I was just smiling and nodding in agreement. I just think that most things in an application tend to be lists, right? Like lists of activities, your list of your grades. But the essay is actually at least the one of the pieces that we get a sense of who you are and your voice. And so as long as we're finding a little bit more about you. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Definitely. The extracurricular list. Now, if you're using the common application or the coalition application, there's only so many spots you have to fill. You do not have to fill all those spots, right? That's not a requirement. What we're looking to see there is everything that's important to you that you've dedicated time to throughout high school outside of the classroom. So that doesn't have to be an organized activity. That doesn't have to be something that's sponsored by your high school. If you spend a lot of time caring for your family members, your younger sibling, if you spend a lot of time gardening with a family member or with friends, if you spent a lot of time developing an amazing YouTube channel and really growing your followers, tell us about those things. We want to know what you're doing outside of the classroom, because your teachers, your transcript, that's going to tell us what you're doing inside during the school day. So the extracurricular list is our quick peek into everything you're doing outside of the day. What are some of the things you like to see on the extracurricular list, Tom?
Again, what I like to see is I like to see commitment rather than like, one semester doing this, 1 year doing that, and flipping around. I think sometimes if there are some more sustained activities, I think that can say a lot about a student. Again, not everyone could be the president of every club and the leader of everything. And so, but again, I just want, I think it's okay for students, especially if you needed to work, if you have other family responsibilities, all those types of things that sometimes that people don't think of them as extracurricular activities. They just think, well, gosh, it has to be a club, it has to be this. But I think there's sometimes, family responsibilities that could be very significant in terms of the amount of time, effort, how it shaped who you are, your place in your family. I think all those things are important and important for us to know about. Just a way though, when you are writing out certain clubs and organizations, just a bit of advice, make sure to actually write out what the name is. If it's, if you just say like the NARP C club, and then I have no idea what that is. Is it a service club? Is it performance? Is it a political, activist club? I have no idea. And so just making sure that you're spelling out, the full title of organizations that are clubs or events or activities that you've done, just to give the reader some more context, right? And so, but again, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to, have been the president of every club.
Along those same sort of detailed lines, don't forget that the writing and the grammar and mechanics of your extracurricular list do need to be on point, checked. Don't sort of write your extracurricular list and forget to have another set of eyes check it over. Definitely proofread it. I've seen amazing written, eloquent essays, and then I get to the extracurricular list and there's an accidental lowercase I or just things that are slipped in there. So don't forget to check. That's another little word of advice. And the final sort of piece of learning about you as a potential community member comes from your letter of recommendation. So seniors, it's kind of a little bit too late to take up this word of advice, but for people that are not seniors, engage with your teachers. I know it might not be cool, but it's good to know that when you're selecting people to write your letters, that you have a personal connection with them so that you can add a little bit more to your letters, not just, yes, this student showed up, they always were prepared, they did their homework, but this student really loves joking around, they always made me laugh, or this student taught me how to knit. So when you're earlier in your high school years, you have these opportunities to start building relationships with your teachers. Now, don't be sneaky, right? This isn't thinking about how you're going to manipulate a relationship for your college purposes later. Instead, this is just an opportunity for you to realize that as teachers write letters, they're going to tell us about your personality and how they've engaged with you and those little conversations they have in between when your bell rings or just in between classes. So if you are an underclassman and you have a chance to develop relationships with your teachers, definitely do so. Any other letters of recommendation tips, Tom?
No, again, this may be one of the years for you if, depending on how your year went, your junior year, if you're a senior now, if the second half of the year was disrupted because of COVID and everything like that, you may think it may be okay to ask, someone you had during your sophomore year, right? During your 10th grade year. And that's okay. And again, I think that on our end, in terms of admissions, we want to be as flexible as possible, especially given all the different circumstances and changes that you've had to go through, kind of adjusting as we all adjust to the pandemic. And so make sure that you just ask someone that actually knows you. I know it, and that could be harder, especially during your senior year. If you are remote right now and it's harder to have interaction, normally, in person, you would have side conversations with a teacher, and maybe that's just harder to have right now in a remote environment. And so it's okay to ask, a teacher that you had earlier, if it's going to be someone that really can kind of speak to you and knows a little bit more about who you are.
Some final essay tips that we have for you, and just in general, make sure that someone that does not know you very well reads your essay. Ask them what 2 things resonated, and if those are not the 2 things you want the strangers like us who are reading your college application an essay to remember, then maybe you need to rework your essay just a little bit. Make sure your essay shares something about you and extend some grace to yourself throughout this whole application process, but definitely when it comes to these areas of higher pressure, like your extracurricular list and your essay. Understand that you just need to take a breath, release perfectionism, and just share a little bit about yourself. We are looking for reasons to admit you, not reasons to reject you. Tom's gonna share a little bit about the things you need to know about financial aid next.
That's right. And so let me stress this. First of all, if you're applying to a place like Oberlin or other, private institutions, oftentimes the price tag, the sticker price can be very scary, right? And so for a place like Oberlin, if you take comprehensive, like cost of attendance, which means tuition, room and board, fees, estimated travel expenses and everything, it's going to come out to almost $77,000 a year to attend Oberlin. The scary thing is that's average right now for like selective private schools. But fortunately, we meet 100% of demonstrated need. We are offering a special scholarship actually this year for anyone that applies, that's admitted. They're guaranteed to get our $10,000 commitment scholarship. So that's a guaranteed scholarship that anyone that we admit for this year. But obviously you may receive a lot more financial aid on top of that because we meet 100% of demonstrated need, right? Just a very quick example. If it costs $77,000 to attend Oberlin, and say after filling out all the forms, we require the FAFSA and the CSS profile, right? After filling that, we'll calculate an estimated family contribution. And if that only ends up being, say, $2,000 a year, right? The difference between the $2,000 and the cost of attendance, that's your demonstrated need. So for that example, your family would need $75,000 a year to attend Oberlin. And so the way that we would meet that 100% is about 85% of that will be grant money, which is money you'll never have to pay back, right? We'll give you a job on campus so you can have work study. And then there are some student loans, but again, it's just a little over about $6,000 a year in student loans. And so we definitely are committed to that. And there's many institutions out there. Well, when I talk about the cost, I know for me personally, growing up, I only applied. I'm not a graduate of Oberlin, so I only applied to the one state institution where I grew up. I grew up in Albuquerque in New Mexico, so I only applied to the University of New Mexico. And I'm fortunate that I even had, guidance and mentors in my life that encouraged me and that I ended up applying to college. But the reason why I only applied to one was because I just didn't think my family could afford it. And so it's crazy, right? And so knowing what I know now, gosh, I pretty much could have gone to almost any school. I would have gotten great financial aid, right? It might even be less expensive, right, to attend, one of these, very expensive private institutions than it would be to attend your local kind of state institution, depending on how much financial aid you need and whether or not they actually meet 100%. It's less than 100 colleges and universities across the entire U.S. that actually will meet 100% of your need. So a lot of places will do something called gapping, which they won't give you as much aid as you need. They'll admit you, but then that means that you'll just have to take a larger portion out in loans. And so, you need to be careful about that, and you need to make sure that you just apply to schools. And then regardless of kind of like ultimate cost, wait to see where you get in, and then you'll be able to compare all the packages and compare apples to apples when you're thinking about, well, what's the cost of this? I do want to say in terms of admissions, in terms of how we're looking at, there's a difference. If you've heard the term need blind or need aware, what does that mean? Because we meet 100% of demonstrated need, we're unable to admit everyone that needs a lot of financial aid, right? And so what we're doing then is we're also looking at a student's, first of all, their academic qualifications. And then after that, we're also considering, how much financial aid they would need to attend Oberlin. And so, because we want to make sure if we admitted everyone that needed a ton of financial aid, we would exhaust all of our financial aid and not be able to do it. And so we need to be careful in terms of who we admit. Now, there are some institutions that are need blind, meaning that, they will just make a decision based upon your academics. But then there's very few that will also meet your 100% of need if they're need blind. And if they are, again, like I said, maybe some of them might not meet your full need. And so, it's a tricky balance. But again, I think that just because you're qualified to get into an institution, if they're selected, they might not be able to extend an offer of admission just merely based upon kind of the makeup of the applicant pool that year. But please don't let that limit in terms of the numbers of schools and the types of schools that you want to apply to. I know I'm
really excited about the next part of this. Sorry, I was just really excited about the next part of the presentation. We have two folks that want to speak with you all. I did just want to mention one thing that snuck up on me as a first-gen low-income student applying to college was the matriculation deposit. This is a deposit that colleges are going to ask you to pay by May 1 to secure your spot in the class. That's if you apply early decision, if you apply early action, if you apply regular decision. For some schools, this can be $100 up to $300. As a first-gen student, when I got that email and it said, you need to pay $300 by May 1, panic. I was like, but I got in. I thought it was set. My financial aid is covered. What does this mean? Contact the financial aid office. If that is a deposit that as a family you are not able to afford all at once, if you're not able to afford it at all, reach out. Very often schools will set up payment plans. They can reduce the cost. They can waive it in some cases. So just be aware, heads up, It will happen. It will likely come. Do not let it catch you off guard like it did me. Now we're going to move on to Tosh and Anna. We're going to begin with Tosh so you can hear a little bit about what it was like for a first-generation student to transition to Oberlin.
Thanks, Brittany. Hi, everybody. My name is Tosh. I use she, her. I'm a second year here at the college, and I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm studying neuroscience, chemistry, and education studies on the pre-med track. A few of my professional interests include medicine, education, and service. So in terms of my transition to college as a first-generation college student, I think I want to start by saying how I knew starting my senior year of high school that I would have to seek resources outside of my home. Growing up with my mom, of course, she was extremely loving and caring, and without her, I wouldn't be where I am today. But when it came to college and the whole college process, it was a different language to and for her. So I was a part of a nonprofit organization in high school that really provided a lot of support, but I knew I would need support elsewhere as well. So one of my earliest college experiences during my senior year was with Oberlin specifically, and I actually attended the Multicultural Visit Program. And for those who may not know, the Multicultural Visit Program is basically a program that a number of colleges host in the fall for seniors in high school. They're generally called like fly-in programs, where they will have students apply for the program from underrepresented backgrounds. Then they will accept a certain amount of students and they'll fly them out to their college. For me, I just drove in since I'm from Cleveland. And so I participated in that program during a very challenging time in my life, actually, one of the most difficult things I ever had experienced. But when I came here to campus, I was so far removed from the experiences back at home. And I just had such a really good experience, specifically with the people and my peers, a lot of whom I still communicate with today, whether it's via social media or whether it's because they're on campus and I'm really good friends with them, or we still text all the time today. So that was really great for me. And then another huge thing that really helped me with my college transition was being a part of two scholarly programs here on campus. So that is the Bonner Scholars Program and the Strong Program. So the Bonner Scholars Program is a scholarship-based program where students who apply and are accepted are either first-generation college students or from low-income backgrounds interested in participating in service. So in exchange for service, you receive a stipend as well as a scholarship, which is really nice. And then I'm also a part of the Strong Program, which was a pre-first year research program in STEM for students of underrepresented backgrounds. And so being a part of both communities has really allowed me to really communicate with my peers in a way that I wasn't able to do so in high school for a number of reasons, mainly because I didn't really share a lot of, personal experiences with and identities with a lot of the students back at home. But being here on campus, I've had the opportunity to do that, which has definitely helped with the college transition. And then also through the Strong Program specifically, I was able to connect with another department here on campus, the Center for Student Success, which does exactly what it kind of implies. It basically makes sure that students are able to succeed in a very holistic way. And I'm actually currently employed with the Center for Student Success. And so I'm actually a peer mentor. And as a peer mentor, I have 9 mentees, all of whom are either first-generation college students or students from low-income backgrounds. And I really support them and affirm them in their identity. And, I'm also a friend to them, which is really nice. And I even unofficially mentor other students here on campus, other first years who are students of color in the sciences. So I've been able to reach out to them and support them in a number of ways, which has been really nice. And I've been able to, make acquaintances with them. And then, so those are the main things that really helped me with my college transition. And I guess in terms of the pieces of advice I would leave with you all, one, I would definitely recommend that you communicate with as many people at your college as possible. So of course, it's really great to talk with the admission folks and other folks on the administrative level, but I think it's also really important to talk with other students, especially students who may have identities very similar to yourself. For me, first-generation college student from a low-income background, a Black student. So really hearing about their experiences here on campus to really see if that college will be a good fit for you. Because once you get on campus, being in college is really nice and all, but as you kind of become a second year and a third year, things get more difficult, classes get more difficult, and then you have these layers of your targeted identities that can make things even more difficult. But once again, being a part of different programs such as the Honor Scholars Program, the Strong Program, and being connected with many folks on campus and programs that are geared towards multiple targeted identities really helps make that transition and that experience afterwards really, really helpful. And then lastly, I would say to just breathe and know that, in my opinion, I genuinely believe that you all will end up exactly where you are meant to be at the time in which you're meant to be there, even if it's not where you may end at, it's where you will start at. And I think that there's always lessons to be learned and memories to be made. And so, yeah, though I guess I talked a lot about, a lot of the experiences that are specific to Oberlin, so a bit biased in that respect. But overall, I think some of the more broader tips I gave would really be helpful. And then one last thing that I forgot to mention in the beginning was some of the things I'm involved in on campus, which I guess I mentioned throughout my whole spiel. So again, I am a peer mentor, a part of those 2 scholarly programs. I'm also an OWLS leader for general chemistry, which basically I'm a teaching assistant, but I don't have to grade tests or papers or anything. And then I'm also part of the Black Scientists Guild, as well as the pre-med program here on campus.
Awesome. Thanks, Tosh. So hello, everyone. My name is Anna Richardson. I am an admissions counselor at Oberlin College. But yes, I am an OB. I graduated in 2018, and I am first gen to college, as well as I come from a low-income background. So really excited to be here with you all. Just to talk about my transition to college, I was also an athlete here at Oberlin College. So my college search was a little bit weird. I was mostly looking at big schools who were talking to me and different things like that. And I didn't understand what a liberal arts college was versus a different type of research school. So one thing I would make sure that if you're not already a senior, not already stuck in what kind of schools you are interested in, make sure you know the different types of schools that are out there and why they are different and the different ways that it can be good for you. So for me, I needed somewhere that was going to be small, and I actually had really close relationships with my professors, where someone else might need to be in a big metropolitan area, but make sure you know why you want to go to a school. So that's something I really didn't know. And I was lucky enough, just like Tosh, to come on our multicultural visit program at Oberlin and really just fall in love with the campus, with the community and the different people. So I would encourage you, especially in this virtual time, to go to those different visits, go to the info sessions, really try to feel out what colleges are like. Because sometimes from our view, at least for me, I kind of looked at college like you just go to college and you get a diploma and that's how it works. I just didn't know that there is such a large variety of different people that go to different schools for a lot of different reasons. So make sure that you are doing all those different things to really support you in that way. So I was also a Bonner Scholar at Oberlin, and I think this is something that's key for all first-gen students. Is it's one thing, to apply and then to get into college. No matter where you go, you need to make sure that you set up a support system. So if you're not at a school like Oberlin that has a lot of already set up things and programs, you should really seek those out. Make sure that you're checking schools like, are there emergency funds for you? Are there extra book funds for you? What happens if you're not able to go home on your own? Things like that. Look up and see how schools support low-income students and what extra background, what extra resources they really do put towards the process, because those are things that are really going to make the difference. At the end of the day, college is difficult. It's difficult for everyone, but it's especially difficult for folks who didn't grow up with that background of a parent who did go to college, who already did these different things, and you're surrounded by a lot of people who take for granted that they do have that and things move really quickly, but making sure that you actually have access to the different resources, because every school does have these things. We do want to retain our first generation students. It's whether you're actually able to get access to them. So it doesn't matter where you are, you can definitely succeed. And then finally, the one thing I want to say is, when you do get to college, imposter syndrome is a real thing. Just know that whatever school you go to, wherever they let you in, you're there for a reason. And that each single one of you do bring something unique. And so even if you do get denied from a school, you heard all the different things we talk about. There's so many different pieces of the application that come into whether we decide that you are accepted or not. It does not have anything to do with your character. It's not because you're not intelligent enough or anything like that. It really is about the selection process process, and there's a lot of things that aren't in your control. So I really just encourage you to go into this process and take whatever you can keep in your control, because it's all going to work out at the end of the day. So don't stress too much, but do reach out to folks like us, CBOs and things, because we are here to help you. So I'm going to leave it at that so that we do have some time for Q&A as well.
That's right. I know we did mention CBO a couple times. That just stands for community-based organization, right? So if you're working with, outbound or college-bound things or whatever it is, I think there's plenty of organizations out there that are helping you. So we encourage you to do that. But we want to go to some of the questions here in the Q&A, and we can kind of tackle those.
Yes. So the first question that we have is, my school is not very aware of how the college application process works. How can I help them go through this? For instance, should I send them to any kind of online guide about the school profile? So what would you say to a student whose school may not be as used to students going to a 4-year U.S. college?
And so, I do want to say that sometimes what you might need to do is you need to be your own kind of best advocate, because at times either guidance counselors might not have the time to be able to find that out, but if anything, you could always refer a guidance counselor to us, right? And then we would be happy. We send out information packets about our school or about best practices, that kind of thing. We also do kind of mini webinars and training just for guidance counselors too. And there's a lot of different resources, nationally about that. If there's the NACAC, NACAC, which, that's the U.S. kind of national organization for guidance counselors. And if there's resources there that your guidance counselor may benefit from, that can also help you. But if you're not finding the help that you need at your guidance office because of maybe lack of knowledge from your guidance office, then you need to take action on yourself. If that means maybe talking to another counselor at another high school, or working with the CBO, or reaching out online, there are definitely resources there. I would hate for students to not not take advantage or be left out of certain, application deadlines and other things because maybe their own office wasn't aware. And so you do need to be proactive about it. Unfortunately, if the resources at your school or your guidance counselor just doesn't have the know-how, then I would seek out actively, and there are plenty of good online resources. If you want to stay around too afterward, we'll also send our email addresses here. So if you want to email us specifically, we would definitely kind of reach out to you and help you in your situation.
I'll just add to that. Know that as we read your application at Oberlin and institutions like us, if there's something that we don't understand or there's information missing, we reach out to your counselors. So definitely don't worry that your application is not going to have something that a domestic student or a student from another country will have. Like before, we have a relationship with all counselors. Even if I see a student applying from a school that's new, I will email. We talked on the phone. Yes, I know we call people on the phone. How weird. But we do. We'll check in with them. So if anything is missing or you're concerned about it, you can also just tell us and we'll follow up with your counselor.
It's also worth note that we're not going to hold anything that your counselor doesn't have against you. So if they don't have the profile and that's just how it is, we're not going to be like, no profile for the application. We know that that's not in your power. So.
Great. The next student's wondering about how Oberlin is for students with different sexual orientations, and also if Oberlin has any religious affiliations.
So Oberlin started out, it was founded by ministers, but it does not have an affiliation with a particular religion or organization like that. And so it is, it's not, that's not who we are as an institution. Even though we are welcoming to people from all faiths and all backgrounds, or religious or not. And so I think that, Oberlin's always been a place that I think that has really been open. It's more of a progressive student body. And so there's definitely resources and a strong community support for students coming from the LGBTQ community. And so if you want student organizations and clubs and support, you can definitely, get connected with many different organizations and offices that would help provide that.
And can you speak to Oberlin being a welcoming place for students of different sexual orientations?
I always like this. Oh yeah, I can touch on it. I always like this question. Sometimes students will pose it as like, do you have a GSA, like the Great Gay Straight Alliance? And it's kind of like, I kind of feel like our whole like campus is kind of like a gay straight alliance. It's like a lot of allies. I would say that we don't have like a particular club that's just for LGBTQ plus folks. But it's like we have certain student organizations like Lilac that is really focused on folks that are non-binary, or also a POC that's actually a publication that they do, or different things like that. So there's a lot of different clubs and organizations that like have like queerness at their core, but they're doing different things. So things like our women's and trans rugby team, or different stuff like that. So I would say it's very welcoming. I would love for Tosh maybe to touch on that too. What you think about that?
Yeah, I guess just to echo everything that you just said, I would say that this campus is very welcoming to folks of all sexual orientations and gender expression in general, which is something I don't think you would see at many other college campuses, or I know at my high school personally, it wasn't this way at all. And so I think it's very refreshing.
I like that there's physical communities and spaces for various types of students, depending on how they identify, particularly with an LGBTQ plus community. We have a theme hall that's for students of color that identify within the community, but then there's also an entire dorm that's connected with our gender, sexuality, and feminist studies department. It's Baldwin. If you've ever seen photos of our campus, it's one of the dorms that looks like a castle, so it's very pretty, but that's our women's and transgender space.
Another question is, how does Oberlin help low-income students?
Anna mentioned really good stuff earlier, like the emergency funds that exist, the ability to sort of have access to just people to give you advice when life happens, because it's not going to stop when you're in college. There's going to be pandemics that spring up. There'll be weather situations and hurricanes and earthquakes and all those things that are really out of your control. Are there other ways, maybe Tosh, that you've experienced that Oberlin supports?
I know being a part of like the Bonner Scholars Program, I know of course everyone maybe isn't interested in participating in a program specifically geared towards service, but I do know that it's something that a lot of folks may be interested in. I guess to talk more in detail about, I guess, some of the financial benefits from Bonner. So you receive a scholarship. And so a lot of the times if you have a work study in your financial aid application or your financial aid award letter, they're able to basically take care of that amount, which is extremely helpful. So you don't have to worry about that possibly. And then also throughout the school year, you will actually receive a total of $2,500 in exchange for community service, as well as attending like monthly meetings and a number of other things. So that's also something that you could possibly get involved in for financial help. And then also the Center for Student Success can also help with more specific things. I know one of my mentees, she actually needed a textbook for chemistry, which can be extremely expensive. The science textbooks are a lot of money, as well as like an online homework assignment type of browser. And they were able to take care of that for her as well. And so I think a lot of the times people will say that some things are hidden. And so you do have to kind of seek some things out, unfortunately, but I like the Center for Student Success is a huge one I would recommend.
That's right. And again, some of these emergency funds, it could be something as like essential as like the right winter wear. You know, if you're from a warmer climate and you come to Ohio where you experience a full winter and you need a new jacket or you need something like that, like there's obviously, I think there's plenty of different resources available. But again, even when we talk about loans and different things, so if you're Pell Grant eligible, meaning that, you know, you have an EFC below a certain threshold, then even the amount of loans that you would be required to take out are even reduced compared to, you know, other students that have to take loans out. And so there's ways that we really, are committed to access for those students that really need the support. And obviously, I know that Tosh was mentioning the Center for Student Success. You know, I know there was another question here about students with dyslexia or autism. Right? If you need accommodations, And so we will make sure, if we admit you, we want to make sure that you have the support services necessary for you to be successful. If it means accommodations, if it means, help with, taking notes in a course. There are students that are actually paid, right? That if you can go to classes and take notes, and then you share your notes with people that need those. And that's an actual job at Oberlin.
I note taked for a while.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so there's definitely ways that we want to provide the support necessary. I know we're right at the 8 o'clock hour. And this was supposed to end at 8 o'clock, but we're going to stay on for a few minutes longer to make sure that we address questions. And so, if you're still with us, please hold on. We'll get to your questions. And so we're gonna take it on for a few more minutes here.
We also have to say goodbye to Tosh. Thank you for joining us so much. She has one of the many things she listed. The communities are gathering and meeting. So thank you for sharing your experience.
Yes, thanks for having me. Good luck to everybody. Bye. Take care.
Josh.
If you want to know more about Tasha's experience, she is a blogger. That's right. If you haven't visited Oberlin blogs, you definitely should. Sophie, could you please drop in the URL for the blogs in the chat? That way you all can check it out after we end.
I would be happy to. So here's another question. For scholarship, how do we use the small scholarships with prizes of a few hundred to a few $1,000s? Are we receiving them in cash, or do they go straight to tuition for the college we choose? So perhaps this is referring to outside scholarships that students receive?
That's right. So for any outside scholarship, it depends on the organization that's awarding you. Some of them may actually give you like a check, but many of the, I know that going through our financial aid office, what it is they will want to know what school you're going to, and then they will directly kind of, deposit that money to go toward your tuition bill, go to our financial aid office. Just a word about these $500 scholarships or $1,000 scholarships. Some people think, I'm not going to apply to that scholarship. It's too small. Man, I would say that, you should apply to as many scholarships. There are millions and millions of dollars of unclaimed kind of like scholarship monies out there that students just don't apply for, right? And so go on fastweb.com, check out all those things, have a lock-in over a weekend with you and a couple other friends, and all you do all weekend long is just fill out applications for scholarships.
Virtual lock-in.
Virtual lock-in, right? And so that sense of, but really dedicating the time. If it means spending, once you fill out one application, afterward, you can usually use a similar essay or something and modify it a bit for other applications. After you get in the groove, right, it could maybe take an hour, right, to fill out an application. And I don't know anything else out there that is legal that a 17 or 18-year-old can make $500 in 1 hour, right? And so it can definitely be worth it in terms of applying for outside scholarships. Because here's what happens: once we already have all your need-based aid and we're giving you things, if you bring in outside scholarships, it'll take away from the money that you have to take out in loans. It can replace the money for your work study. And so it can do, it can only help you. And so it will not hurt you to get, a lot of these $500 or $1,000 scholarships. And particularly there's a lot that are even in your own local area. If it's, an American Legion something, or the local group of, individuals that meet out there that want to give a $500 scholarship to the kid graduating from their own neighborhood. There's plenty of different things out there. There's ones for left-handed people. If you ride a unicycle, there are scholarships pretty much for everything.
I'll also say that there is Raise Me as well. So if you're not as familiar with Raise Me, it's for anyone who is, I guess seniors can still do it, but it's a way to like gain micro scholarships with different schools. So if you aren't on there and you are interested in some of the schools on there, basically they give you a certain amount of money for going to different sessions or for keeping a certain GPA or different things like that. But that's a way that you can earn some merit scholarships from the partners of Raise Me. And I think, Sophie, if you could just put a Raise Me, there you go. Perfect. There it is. If you want to check it out too.
And so you don't need a certain GPA to be eligible for a merit-based scholarship. So there's not like necessarily a cutoff. We are looking at it in context. But again, you can look at our test averages and our GPA averages on our website. That can give you some indication. But again, we're also making different choices. And so it's all about context in terms of how you're doing at the school you're at. And so that's what we're looking at.
Can you talk, or anybody, can you talk about cost estimators, how they can be used and what populations they're relevant for?
And so right now on our website, you can go to our website and we use something called My Intuition, which is about 6 questions that your family can answer. It is available to students that, let's see, it's all domestic students. International students, it does not apply for. And so there's also the net price calculator that we have on our website, that it's a lot more in depth. And so it's similar to filling out the CSS profile. And so it asks a lot of specific questions, but it'll be very, very accurate. The My Intuition will give you a range of how much it's approximately gonna cost to attend our institution. So it could be a $5,000 range or a $10,000 range. It depends, where the net price calculator will be very accurate depending on the information that you put in. It's if you're coming from a family where you have a non-custodial parent, then the net price calculator doesn't work for that. But My Intuition, you'd basically have each parent fill it out separately, and then you would add that together. But unfortunately, for most of for international students, the net price calculator and the My Intuition does not work. It's a tool mostly designed for domestic students.
The students asking about music opportunities for students, and they asked, would you say students that are interested in technology and music but do not necessarily want to be part of the orchestra, would the Tomorrow major be a good fit?
Someone else want to take that, or I can answer?
Maybe you could just clarify it a little bit, Sophie. So the student is interested in music on the college side, but they don't want to study tomorrow. Is that the case?
They're interested in the Tomorrow major, but not sure if the
tomorrow
conservatory is the right fit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a lot of flexibility that's there. So the college and the conservatory both have opportunities for students that are enrolled in one to engage in a sort of full-time curriculum, whether that's you majoring in an area, minoring in an area, most common, or just being engaged on the side. So if you want to approach it more like an extracurricular, that's a possibility. You can work with faculty. More specifically, you can design an entire winter term project. This is an opportunity where students at Oberlin take 3 of their 4 Januaries during a typical non-COVID year to dedicate themselves to one thing that they're passionate about, one thing that connects with their academics, or something that's more professional development oriented. If you just want to immerse yourself in the world of tomorrow, you can design your own project. You can work with the faculty in the department that already have a project going on as well. Or if you are looking for that more curricular fit, you can major in musical studies or minor in musical studies. And there's a few other programs that we often recommend you, because the Tomorrow department is so specific. Reach out to the professors. All of our faculty are excited to talk with prospective students. They're eager because they know that you're the person that's going to be in their classroom soon. So feel free to reach out to whatever professor is teaching the thing you're most interested in and ask questions about the best way for you to engage, given your experience and given the amount of time you want to dedicate to tomorrow.
So for students interested in music, like over half of all the students that enrolled in the college at Oberlin have been seriously involved in music, performance, theater. So a lot of students come to Oberlin, the college, to take advantage of the conservatory, so you can take lessons, use practice rooms, take classes. You can minor in music in the conservatory as a college student, and then as someone in the conservatory, you could minor in, in the college, right? And so there's lots of different options. And so, if you can think about it musically, it's probably happening on Oberlin's campus, right? So there's a ton of different opportunities to do that. And probably tomorrow, that technology and music and the related arts is probably one of the most accessible in terms of students that are more, more on the college side and want to do some things in the conservatory. I know there's a couple questions here about non-custodial parent, if you've never known your biological parent, there is an opportunity to get that non-custodial parent like waived, and so that their income would not be considered in the calculation of your estimated family contribution, right? And so if you have no contact or if there's legal issues, there is a process you can apply to have that non-custodial parent waived. And so we would not require that information from a parent. I do want to emphasize though as well is that our $10,000 scholarship, the commitment scholarship, as well as any other financial aid, if we're going to meet 100% of your need, that goes for all domestic students, all international students, any undocumented students, right? And so if you're undocumented, if we admit you, we will give you the financial aid that you need to attend Oberlin, right? And so it means that we'll package it a little bit differently in terms of we wouldn't give you federal aid, right? But we would give you institutional aid. So we would replace what normally would be federal Pell Grants, and we'll give you Oberlin College grant money, right? And so as an undocumented student, if you are applying to Oberlin and you get admitted, we will definitely give you the financial aid to afford Oberlin. And then, and even our work study, we'll give you Oberlin work study, right? And so we'll allow you to work on campus while you're here. And then, is the virtual multicultural visit program also open to international students?
No, the virtual multicultural visit program is for domestic students. However, we do have a lot of programs that are currently available, and we're making new ones because we just can't get enough of interacting with you all. And we're learning what it is that's more sort of the best ways to engage and the information you want to know through Zoom. So we are going to be having open houses soon, and the open houses are completely welcome for international students, and a lot of the same program we've been offering for the multicultural visit program will also be made available in that program. So they might have different names, they might have different sort of programs and things, but overall, any of the information we have during one program, you always have accessible to you. And the best way to find out is to email your counselor. And if you don't know who your counselor is, you can visit our website. Sophie, if you can maybe drop in the link for the counselors by region. So that way, no matter where you are or where you live, you know that there's definitely one Oberlin advocate on your side there to provide you with information and give you things that sort of exist already. So we have a huge list of videos on our YouTube account. We have a lot of different departmental pages. There are blogs. There's a ton of online resources. That doesn't mean it's easy to find. We know the website. We know where all that information lives. So instead of spending a lot of your time looking from one college to the other, sometimes it's just a lot faster and a lot less stressful to email us. We're happy to just send you a bulleted list of all the best resources specifically for you.
So again, I think that's about all the questions. Again, there's still one more in there. Again, undocumented students, yes, they are eligible to receive merit scholarships, so, and so when I said before about financial aid for an undocumented student, that includes need-based as well as merit-based scholarships. I think that is about it in terms of the type of questions that we have in here. On behalf of our entire staff, I just want to thank you for spending time with us. If you do have additional questions, there's our contact information is up there. Mine is
oh no, it's spelled wrong. Sorry, Tom. Beta. It's correct in your chat. The chat that Sophie sent to you, it's accurate. Sorry about that.
So in the chat, check that, and then but here's what we wanted you to even step away with is that Brittany, Anna, myself, we are professionals in the admissions world, but we also can relate personally to students coming from underrepresented backgrounds, people from low-income backgrounds. And I know part of why I've remained in admissions for 20 years is that I see the benefit in helping to provide access to students and families that maybe never even considered a selected place like Oberlin. And so, we want you to know that there are people on the other end rooting for you, being your advocate. That doesn't mean that everyone will get in, right? I don't want to make that as a promise or a guarantee, but we know that we're thoughtful in the process, and we want to make sure that you get an accurate evaluation and really present it in committee, because we actually will meet in a room and we'll discuss every case, right, where we are making decisions and we're talking about individual students. And so it's very labor intensive, but it's one that's well worth it, because we know that, you know, we build a community one student at a time. And so if you do have questions, please don't just, you know, sit there in silence and wonder about it. Please reach out. And there's definitely people behind the scenes that want to be able to help you and to maybe help you. Any good admissions officer should help you get to where you need to be, even if it means not their school, right? And so we want to help students get connected with the right resources and make sure that they're able to get in a community where they can, you know, study what they want to study, but also thrive in the process and be a part of a community that can push them in ways and stretch them so that ultimately they will grow personally, professionally, kind of that holistic growth. And so we wish you the best of luck, but also we do encourage and want to ask you to reach out if you do have questions. And I know Brittany, I'll definitely open it up if Brittany or Anna have any other kind of parting words of advice.
I definitely agree with everything Tom has to say. I really enjoy the work that I do because I get to interact with students and help them along their journey, whether that final journey for college is Oberlin or if it's another institution. I'm happy to assist students with their questions, college related, big or small, as well as family members and counselors that might be joining us this evening. If this Tuesday evening time is a really great opportunity or window in your day to learn about college in Oberlin, that I encourage you to consider continuing on the conversation at our next Tuesday talk, which is October 13th. It's going to be on the college application overall. We talked about just a few elements during this session. There's a lot more, and my colleague Josh Levy will be there to share additional information. So this doesn't have to be the end of your Oberlin connection. It can definitely continue. Good night, folks. Thanks for joining us.